Going into 2019, I'd been under a lot of pressure. So I knew that I was potentially going to be taken off the GB squad in April 2019. So again, I was in an even more extreme situation where I was now going to have to score an incredibly high score to qualify myself back onto the GB squad. Otherwise, that was it. I was going to be taken off. I'd been on that squad since I was 8 years old. I was going to lose all my funding. I didn't have any sponsorships at that time, so I wasn't going to earn any money. So I did everything I possibly could, and ultimately, I had a terrible competition. I went into the competition. I remember putting my hand up on the high bar, and at that time, I'd basically been looking for a silver bullet, something that I couldn't understand why I couldn't put it together anymore. I didn't get it. I was doing everything I used to do when I was younger, but it just wasn't working for me. So, I'd listen to podcasts and listen to different people talk, and I'd try and find these little things. I was looking for a silver bullet that would solve all of my issues and get me back on track to how, the success I had when I was younger. And I'd heard about intermittent fasting at this point. I thought, that sounds good. And I listened to all these UFC fighters talking about it. I thought, that's a great idea, that might be the thing that's missing. So I'd started really restricting my eating at the beginning of 2019. And going into that competition at the British Championships, I put my hand up for the first routine on the high bar. I started the routine and I just had nothing in me. And I realised in that moment, oh no, I've made a big mistake here. I was very light. I must have been competing at about 63 kilos. And my natural weight was about 67, I think, by the end of my career. So I was super light. And obviously when you're not eating properly, you're not recovering properly, you're not sleeping properly, it massively affects your mental health. I didn't know at the time, it hadn't been diagnosed, but I was suffering with depression, anxiety. And so my body was just falling to pieces. I got taken off the British squad, and going into that summer, my goal was still this Olympic Games next year, but it's becoming more and more unlikely, and I started to really, really suffer with pain in my neck. So earlier that year, I'd been filming with Sam one day, and I'd trapped a nerve in my neck very early in the year, start of 2019, and we actually got it on camera. And I couldn't move my neck. And this used to happen to me like a couple of times a year, either in my back or my neck. I get a spasm. It lasts for a couple of days and then it'd be fine. But this time it lingered for a long time. And I'd gone to a training camp with this neck injury. And this was at the start of that year in 2019. So that had massively inhibited my training. But it eventually kind of went away. But start of the summer 2008, it was coming back. I was getting that pain. And it got to the point where one day I was in the gym and my neck completely went. I was just warming up. All I was doing was warming up. My neck went and I couldn't move it, to the point where even moving my eyes from left to right was hurting my neck. And I tried to drive home and I couldn't move my head. I just had to leave my car, get someone else to pick me up. And I had gone in to see the physio and a doctor that had known me for about 10 years, and I'd basically gone in with this neck pain. And they said, we're going to send you for some MRI scans. And what actually came out of that doctor's meeting was that I got sent for essentially, they asked that if I would fill out a profiling, and it was about mental health. And I can remember walking out of that room just before I left when I'd gone about my neck, and I said, look, Kate, if I'm really stressed, could this be affecting my neck? And she said, yes. A lot of people, stress affects people in many different ways. And for a lot of people, they take it in their neck. And that's certainly what I do. And at the time, I was hinging like this in my neck. So basically what was happening, the discs in my neck were compressing, and it was compressing on the nerve that runs down my neck. And I was getting nerve pain all the way down my neck into my hand. So my hand would be cold all the time. And I just couldn't train. I couldn't do any gymnastics, At one point, I was like, the only thing I could do in a day was go and have a sauna at David Lloyd. That was it. I just couldn't. I tried again after again. I go to the gym, try and do some training, try and warm up. I just couldn't move my neck. Yeah, and eventually I got the MRI scan results back. They said, you've got essentially a bulging disc. It's pressing on the nerve, compressing the nerve. You're going to have to stop training. We need to lengthen your neck, stop it hinging, and hopefully we've got it early enough and we can stop that. And it's very similar to the injury that Niall went on to have, and it ended Niall's career, essentially. So I'm really lucky that we got that early and I stopped. But after that, that was really serious, and I started to think about life after gymnastics, because you don't mess around with your neck. And I think that's the first time that I kind of went, you know what, actually, it's more important here for me to get well for the rest of my life than gymnastics.